Hi, I'm Noah Gift.
And I'm Jeremy Jones.
Welcome to Spotlight on FOSS, the video podcast series that focuses on free and open source software and the revolutionary thinkers behind them.
In our pilot episode, we interview Mark Shuttleworth, the founder of the Ubuntu project.
Mark sat down with us and answered a few questions ranging from what it's like to travel in space to Ubuntu on Dell. What is it like to travel in space?
So it's an extraordinary privilege to fly in space. It completely changes your perspective on the fragility of the human experience and the fragility of our planet. When you've actually looked down on the Earth and you've seen how much of it has been dramatically altered by ourselves, by humanity, then you realize that we have a real obligation to take very careful decisions about what we do going forward. If you looked at the face of the Earth 200 years ago and you looked at it today, it would look fundamentally, dramatically different. And I think we're only just starting to comprehend now the scale of the impact that we are having on the planet. So having seen that firsthand, it certainly has changed my view of what's important in the way we treat the Earth and the way we behave there. It's also an extraordinary thing to go through a process which involves transplanting yourself into a completely different culture, which for me was fascinating, to spend a year living mostly in Russia and working with Russians, and to walk through an experience which involves some degree of terror and some degree of boredom and some degree of dedication, and ultimately get to a point which is very privileged and unique. It just was a great experience. I'm very excited about the fact that space is becoming more accessible to everybody else out there, and I look forward to a day when we can all share in that experience, because it does change your perspective.
What would you like the world to know about Ubuntu?
Ubuntu, to my mind, truly captures the spirit of free software. We've had almost 20 years of development in the free software movement, and our goal with the Ubuntu project is to distill all of that down into something which anybody can use, whether they are a software professional, an information technology professional, or whether they are the grandmother of the information technology professional. Ubuntu tries to distill the very, very best of the free software world into something which is convenient to share, convenient to train on, convenient to deploy, convenient to manage. Free software has already changed the economics of the technology industry. If you look at the whole .com and internet revolution, it really is powered by free software. But that revolution hasn't yet reached the daily lives of everybody who uses a computer. And so Ubuntu, I hope, will help us take the next step with free software and make it something that everybody uses and that everybody can share. So the things that everybody, I think, would agree about it and that folks should know are that, first, it really is easy to install and easy to use. Second, it genuinely is freely available, and it goes as far as we think is right at this stage towards making sure that it is an entirely free software platform, and it expresses, I think, the best of what's possible with a well-organized community in the free software world. It's also something that anybody can participate in. We have thousands of people participating in developing Ubuntu, and so whatever your particular interests or particular capabilities, you really can help to accelerate the project and help it to do amazing things.
What are you ultimately trying to achieve in life?
That's a tricky question, because I don't think that life can be planned in the way that maybe we conventionally used to think that you could plan your life. The world has changed so much and continues to change so fast that I think the best we can do is respond in brief segments of life to the opportunities and to the changes going on around us. I have always wanted to be associated with change, with either technology that was changing society or changes in society itself. And all we can really do is to help to capture the essence of that change and accelerate it, move the world along the path that it's destined to roll. I also think we should enjoy life. So I hope, if I'm remembered for anything, it's for making the most of a very, very brief stay here on Earth.
What impact will free and open source software have on the world?
Perhaps a better way to look at this is that free software itself is just one manifestation of a broader change that is happening in the world. 10 years ago, we were all extremely excited about connecting the world. And while that job isn't yet done, there are still billions of people who don't have running water or electricity, let alone access to the internet. But it's clear that we're on a trajectory now to get the whole world connected to the internet. Whether that takes 10 years or 50 years is a matter of social policy and conscience, but we are on that trajectory. What's happening now, a decade later, is that we're figuring out completely new ways to create work powered by the internet. And what we're finding is that it's possible to very efficiently, very effectively gather together the best thinkers or the best producers or the best creators in a particular field and empower them to build something that everybody benefits from. This is true. This is clearly true in the field of software, where free software has captured that ideal and that process. But it's also true in content. If you look at Wikipedia as a manifestation of aggregating the collaborative thoughts of millions of people, driven by their interests and driven by their fascinations and their expertise, rather than driven by where they happen to live or who's willing to pay them. You get a wonderful result when you do this. And I think this meme, this idea, is going to touch every industry in the same way that the internet itself has touched every industry. So us free software guys can be proud of in one sense, being the first to capture the possibility of global collaboration around a shared digital commons. But we shouldn't overstate our contribution, that we are ourselves part of a much bigger movement. And over the next 10 years, I think that will become increasingly clear. And smart companies, smart individuals will figure out how to make the most of that.
What advice do you have for young people?
It's trite to say that we're all different. But the reality is each of us is motivated by different ideals. There are a couple of ideas, though, that I think are universal. And the first is that you have the right to play on the world stage in whatever field you're interested in. If you're interested in biotechnology, you can be a globally leading biotechnologist, whether you're in India, whether you're in China, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in South America or Europe or the States. It really doesn't matter now. You can read what's going on with the cutting-edge research from an internet cafe. You can participate in discussions with cutting-edge researchers on mailing lists and web forums and in online. You can study not just what you're taught. You shouldn't be limited by the university that you have access to or the professors at that university. You can study what you want to study. I've had a bad habit of breaking the rules in that sense throughout life, and I've been fortunate to have teachers who would give me permission to do that. But you don't have to ask for permission. You can go out there and pursue whatever it is that fascinates you. So that would be the one thing. You have the ability to play on the world stage. The next thing would be that in pursuing your passion, in pursuing the things that fascinate you, you are inevitably going to be better at that than you would be just simply doing what you think should be done. So don't listen to anybody who tells you that finance is the place to be, because that may be true right now, but perhaps that the time of that is coming to an end. Don't start your career based on what's hot right now. Start your career based on what fascinates you, and then you are certain of living a life that will fascinate you. Time will fly, and there are no guarantees about how that will work out for you financially. But there is an assurance that you will be more successful at that than anything else, and more engaged with what you're doing. So, if you currently at school and you're thinking about your career choices, it's very simple. Ask yourself what fascinates you about the world out there today. And I suppose if there is another corollary to that, is that you need to know what's going on in the world out there today. So I would really encourage anybody to get out there and read, understand what's happening in the world, and then pursue the things that really fascinate you.
What people in free and open source software are your heroes?
Free software has attracted, over the last 20 years, some of the best and the brightest contributors, technologists, thinkers, researchers, and so there's no shortage of people to admire along those grounds. But I think if you look at the successful open source projects, the people who lead them have more than simply a strong technical capability. They have an ability to motivate people, an ability to reach consensus through a very porous form of communications, email and mailing lists. But they've got an ability to motivate and lead and build consensus and keep things moving in a community environment rather than just the ability to cut good code themselves. And so the people I admire are folks who've done that very well. I was always a great admirer of Daniel Robbins in Gen 2. I thought he led the community very well that he was building there. I was a great admirer of Linus, obviously, not so much for his extraordinary technical skill, but for the way he combines smart thinking with very, very good leadership and very good motivation of other smart people. The way he understands the most effective way for him to influence what's going on. It would have been very easy for him to want to exert influence in places where he's just not going to be effective. And I've never seen him waste time on those sorts of things.
Will Ubuntu reach the stability and usability of OS X?
The factory that you produce something in does have a big impact on the ultimate outcome. So the factory that we work in the open source world is one that has no boundaries, but it also has few rules. It has very few barriers to participation, but then it also has very little ability to exert a strong overall direction. And it's no surprise when you understand that free software has tended to lead in terms of creativity, lead in terms of innovation, but struggle to produce something that is sort of really rounded and has the feeling of cohesiveness that something that comes from a single vision sometimes can. I think we can address that. I think that there is an increasing interest within the open source community in producing something that is widely usable. We do need to find business models which aren't at odds with the best of free software, with the community spirit, but which do allow for the investment in things which the free software community itself isn't, frankly, that interested in doing. I'm confident that we'll find those business models. I think that is part of what's exciting about this revolution and part of why I want to participate in all of this. As we discover those business models, we'll increase the overall level of investment in free software, and in so doing, we'll bring additional capability, additional skills to the table, which we currently lack in the community.
What advice